Welcome, dear viewers, to this segment of your show. I told you today we'll be walking through the life of one of the people I look to as a pioneer when we talk about the missionary trust in Africa. Pade Tokun was a past international director for Capro Missions, which is one of the foremost missionary agencies in Africa. But what stands out for me, Pade, is the fact that you speak French more than many francophone people. And I've seen you preach fluently in French. You're welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Well, how did you get your French?
Actually, maybe God, I believe the Lord has been preparing me for the ministry in the Francophone because as a secondary school student, I did French and I loved it. But where I really learned French was on the mission field in Senegal.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, now you started off in Senegal, and yes. Go back then because you were talking about the late 70s when you started getting involved with people who call themselves missions. Somewhere around 1977, that was when you started visiting mission people like Capro. Tell us a bit about what it looked like in those days, in the late 70s.
Well, even in around this late 70s. Capro had started, but Capro had not found our feet in missions. In fact, at that time, we did not know that what we were doing was mission. It was a bit later that we began to understand mission. We started mainly with the burden to reach out to the unreached peoples in the northern parts of Nigeria and in West Africa and Francophone. That was the burden. It was later we were able to articulate it correctly and began to define what we now call today the missionary focus.
Now, you later on moved in and became a full-time missionary. You were trained and you were even working as a civil engineer. How was that transition for you? The fact that here you are going to a place of certain income as a civil engineer and a very lucrative future. And you were going to leave all that to join a group of people who didn't pay any salary, who only promised you that you would be sent to somewhere, an interior place, maybe among Muslims, to go and preach the gospel. How did that transition go for you? And which year did that happen?
Actually, I would say everything came with a body and a vision. I got involved with Capro while I was a student in ABU, at that time doing civil engineering. Had studied mathematics in OAU, University of Ife, in those days. And after the service corps, I went to the ABU, and there studying civil engineering. And that was when I got involved in Capro and got very much involved. And the body for mission came, but as I said at that time, we didn't call it mission, but we were doing a lot of things.
When you say body, that means you started feeling in your heart. You wanted to reach out to who? When you say missions, just for some of our viewers might not understand this term, what was it that you were feeling in your heart?
Actually, I had a burden right from the time I went for NYC in Sokoto.
NYC is the one-year compulsory
missionary service corps
that is done in Nigeria.
Yes, yes, and I was in Sokoto for 1 year. I had the burden for reaching out to the Muslims. We were doing that while in Sokoto. In fact, that was even the first time when I began to get involved practically with Capro, because when Sokoto, Capro was in Zaria, and I remember we were doing some outreach, and we brought Capro in. That was way back in '77.
Okay. Now, when you now finally joined, I mean, wasn't there a challenge in your heart of how am I going to survive?
Well, I would say yes, that was there, but it started with. We had a lot of visits to some countries to see what Capro could do. That was when we went to the Gambia, to Senegal. That was way back in, I would say, 1979, 1980, you know. And so gradually, the body was building with what I was seeing outside the country and what we were discussing. So, of course, when the time came, it wasn't easy. A lot of uncertainty, maybe not just because of money, but a lot of uncertainty, because at that time, people were working to start churches, but to talk of going to another country, not to start a church, but to reach out to the unreached, a lot of uncertainties were there.
So you now here you are going to find out where the gospel hasn't been preached and to see that they are preached to people who have never heard. And in your heart was Senegal already?
Well, it was, in fact, it was when I went to Senegal that burden came. When I went to Senegal, that burden came. And so I knew it was going to be Senegal. And we had one or two other missionaries before then outside the country, but they were working with some mission agencies, older mission agencies. So then when we thought of Senegal, we thought, that we could start doing, Capro doing mission outside the country. In fact, at that time, we have not even started the fields we had in Nigeria. We have in Nigeria today, So these were the uncertainties at that time. It was at a time when it was difficult for Nigeria economically. In fact, it was at the peak of the problem that we nearly thought of postponing the vision. That you see, if we want to send missionaries to Senegal, it would be nearly impossible, and it was just before we started going that Nigeria began to have economic problem. And we were tempted, that is the mission, the ministry was tempted to postpone it, but we thank God we didn't postpone it. Then when we got to Senegal, it was strange to many of the missionaries there that in fact, they had to find out whether I really came from Capro, because to them, how can Capro, an African mission agency, an African organization, start sending missionaries? So fortunately, we had some contact with some mission agencies that we were working with in Gambia. It was difficult to believe that Africans were doing missions on their own, So there was a lot of hesitations. In fact, we were not accepted for some time.
And you are talking about the Western community there, because most of the missionaries there were all Westerners. So now coming in and seeing a black man coming in as a missionary was strange. So it took a while for you to be accepted. But you did break through that, and I know that the Lord helped you to start a work among the unreached in Senegal, and from there you went on to Côte d'Ivoire.
Well, let me say that in Senegal, it was just initial hesitations, but eventually we had wonderful working relationship with all those missionaries that were there. Wonderful, eventually. So it didn't end that way. It started with a lot of hesitation, but it went on very fun eventually.
What was the situation you found, and what gripped your heart when you saw the spiritual landscape in those days? Of course,
the burden we had was for the Wolofs. The Wolof people,
These are the main unreached people in Senegal.
Yes. At that time, very, very few Christians, and they were the major people in Senegal, and everybody speaks Wolof in Senegal. So we went with that. But over the years, we have a lot of Wolofs now that are Christians with different churches.
God has brought in many Wolof that have become Christian, but in those days there was no Wolof Christian.
No, there were very few. I remember when we were entering Senegal, we were told there were about, I'm not very sure of the figure, were they talking about 7 or 8 Wolof that were Christians.
Out of the entire Wolof tribe, the rest were all Muslims.
They were Muslims.
All Muslims. They are normally known as the ones that bring in the marabouts from Senegal. And you worked in Senegal for how many years?
We were in Senegal for 5 years.
5 years, yes. And then you moved on from there through Guinea, Conakry?
No, we came back to Nigeria.
Before you went to Guinea, Conakry?
Yeah, we came back to Nigeria because actually we left because I was to take up the responsibility in Nigeria. That time as the Deputy Executive Secretary of our mission, of Capro. So that was why we came back.
And then you went on from Guinea to...
Then from Nigeria, we went to Guinea as a stopgap on our way to
Côte d'Ivoire.
Yes.
Côte d'Ivoire is where you spent a good chunk of your work in the Francophone.
No, we were in Côte d'Ivoire for 7 years.
Yeah. We'll take a short break. When we come back, we'll talk about what God is doing in the Francophone world. But we want to look a bit about the missionary movement you pioneered in Côte d'Ivoire. Viewers, we've been talking to Pade Tokun and his work in the Francophone. We'll go for a short break, and when we come back, we'll continue this conversation. Please don't go away. Hi there. This program is made possible by the generous donations of people like you who believe in our vision. Our passion is to be Christ-centered as well as Afrocentric as we discuss the issues that face us in Africa so as to equip and challenge African believers like you to be salt and light right in their neighborhood. Your gifts to this ministry can make a huge difference. I encourage you to prayerfully consider partnering with us today. Please go to our website to find out how you can give today. Thank you in advance for your support. Welcome back, dear viewers. We're talking to Pade Tokun, pioneer missionary among the Francophone part of West Africa, and even you worked in the Congo, DRC,
yes.
the Democratic Republic of Congo, and up to recently you were busy with equipping the leaders there.
Yeah.
And many people know you for your Bible teaching and the books you have written, but I think you started writing your books in French before you moved over to writing them in French and in English. Let's go back a bit to the Francophone world. When you look at it today compared to when you ventured into it in the early 80s, what do you see that God has done?
Definitely the church has grown a lot in the Francophone world, definitely. Even in countries like Senegal, where the church was very small, today the church is very large. Well, we still have a lot of unreached peoples, but the church has grown, and the number of unreached peoples, I believe, have reduced. So a lot has been done.
What are the major challenges that remain as you look around, the key challenges you see?
Well, the challenge is what we have in different parts of the world, in churches in different parts of the world. There is a big need for discipleship. That is the kind of, you see, to produce the kind of Christians to take up the challenges around them and in the world in general. There's a high level of superficiality in Christian profession in the Francophone world, just as we have in the Anglophone world, in the Lusophone world. So that is much. That has made the church that looks very big, but will be not as strong as it would have been. You know, maybe I would say something like the church is quite fat, but not very strong. So that's why the churches are not sufficiently taking the challenges in their nations that they should have been taking. You know, and when you look at it in some ways, you can say that it has also favored a lot of nominalism. You know, that is, you know, before in the 80s, you have the traditional churches, and then you have the evangelicals and Pentecostals. But today the line is very thin because many Orthodox churches are very evangelical in their practice, and you have a lot of evangelical and Pentecostals that are very nominal in reality.
So now, let me go back a bit to when you started off in Côte d'Ivoire. You moved over to Côte d'Ivoire, and one of the things that came out of your going to Côte d'Ivoire is the start of what was called the EFM, Institut Inter-Africain de Formation Missionnaire, and which you started in Abidjan or nearby. What was the burden behind this missionary training institute?
Well, AMI, that is Action Missionnaire Inter-Africaine, is a Capro version, in Cote d'Ivoire. It's just the local. Then Army created the EFM. That's the missionary church. That's the missionary school. Of course, when we got there, our burden was to raise missionaries for the Francophone world.
Because right now, that was in the 80s, and you were looking at how to push people into different places.
We got there in 1990. We got to Cote d'Ivoire in 1990.
Okay.
And of course, at that time, Capro was producing already missionaries in Nigeria. But we know that the future of the Francophone world will need more than what Nigeria can produce. We need people that are culturally nearer to a school that is culturally nearer, to the people we want to reach. So if we want to reach the Francophone, we need to train Francophones. That is why we started the EFM. And since it started in 1992, it has trained so many for different Francophone countries.
Even after you left the Francophone space, in the last 10, 15 years, you have been much in that space, especially with this FOMIG.
Yes, we started FOMIRES, Formation en vue du ministère et de responsabilité spirituelle.
Which is
it's a training program for spiritual leadership. That is what we are saying, is that we notice that many Christians, whether pastors or just members or deacons, they have an understanding of Christianity that is not sufficient for their ministry. So they cannot make sufficient impact. So we started that training. It's a training that is based on that is designed in modules. That is, people come for 1 week, then after about 3 to 4 months, they come for another 1 week, and they do that 6 times. And we started to do that from 2007. And we've trained near 1,000 people in 6 sets. That is FOMIRES. But at the same time, we have something specially for pastors. Although many pastors have gone through that FOMIRES, but we have something special for pastors we call FOBIMISELF, which is training for biblical ministerial training for servants of God in service. That is, these are not pastors that will leave their ministry. They are say pastors, they come for 1 week. No, we train them, they go back, and we do that 5 times for pastors.
Which you have used not just in Cote d'Ivoire.
No, we have done that one mainly in Togo.
In Togo and other places. You've done that mainly in Togo.
In Togo, in Kara, and then in Lomé.
And you've used this just to equip servants of
mainly
God
pastors.
In the ministry. And this is in response to what you were talking to about before, the need to deepen the life of the church.
Yes.
And the way out for you is to deepen the life of the ministers.
Exactly.
And what kind of feedbacks have you been getting from these places?
Well, let me say that there was a pastor that was telling me that he told his people that if not for that program, he did not realize that his ministry towards them had been very superficial, and it is now, after he's doing that program, in fact, the time when he was saying it, he was still doing it, he had been finished. So he was telling them that it is now that he could get a focus for his ministry. And that has been a testimony we have received from so many. Many people that have gone through FOMIRES and FOBIMISELF have been equipped to serve God better, whether as full-time or part-time.
And I see this to be, especially in the last 20 years as I've been watching your ministry, not just in the Francophone, even in Nigeria and other Anglophone countries, and also in your work in Congo, DRC, is this burden to equip pastors. In some places they call you pastor of pastors. And where does that burden stay with you at this stage? Where do you see the future? What do you see coming in the future? Well,
the future we see is to be able to help more ministers and pastors, because you see, when we are talking of the need for mission work to be done, whether we like it or not, the pastors play major roles. And these pastors, many times, have not been prepared for it. So we see it as a burden to prepare the pastors to do it. In fact, one of the things we do through those programs is to equip those pastors to disciple their members. Because those that we go out as missionaries must have been discipled, and they can only be discipled by their pastors.
Discipleship should happen in the local church.
It should happen in the local church, and the only way we can do that is not to bring them out of the local churches, but to equip the pastors to do that for them, and it is happening. It is happening. In fact, we discovered that some of the, many of the pastors will tell us that they have reshaped their ministries, their teaching, the way they organize their churches based on what they have received.
Which is really wonderful.
Yes.
And if somebody wants to bring this, I know there's many countries where this is not happening. What is there a phone number? Is there a contact that they can go to?
Well, let them just contact Capro International Office.
Okay. Now, so what I would say to you viewers is that if you are interested in having this kind of help, or you want this kind of training for pastors or professionals in your country, go to the website on the screen, and or else call our number or contact us by WhatsApp on the numbers on your screen, and Pade will be available to help in terms of training pastors or equipping churches to disciple their people so that they'll be ready to bring in the last harvest. Pade, we have to unfortunately land this here. What's your last word to our audience?
Well, is that the world is changing, but the gospel has not changed. And the Lord has foreseen all the things that are going on in the world. And I know that all the equipment that the church will need to face the challenge of the world, God has already invested in the church. So I would say, don't let us be frightened, don't let us be discouraged. Let us know that the battle is on and we're on the side of victory. No, let the churches arise. Let us preach the gospel in its simplicity, in the power of the Holy Spirit.
Thank you very much. And that's where we'll wrap this up on this segment of the show. I'll come back with my last word, but thank you so much, Bro Pade, for coming on the show. It's been so nice having you.
God bless you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
God bless you.
God bless you.
Okay.